Two Queenslands existed at the same time this week. One Queensland filled your TV screen, helicopters hovering above swollen rivers, politicians in high-vis vests, press conferences on bridges, cameras everywhere. The other Queensland barely existed at all. No cameras, no ministers, no briefings, just water, endless water. Roads gone, properties isolated, phone towers dead, families cut off with no idea what was coming next. And today, inside Parliament, that silence finally snapped, because one senator stood up and forced the country to confront a question it's been avoiding for years. Why does help arrive instantly for some Australians, while others are told to wait? If you've ever felt forgotten by people in power, don't blink. This moment matters more than you think. And what happened next inside that chamber made a lot of people very uncomfortable.
Out west, the rain didn't creep in, it crashed. Creeks that were dust a week ago tore through fences overnight. Roads dissolved into rivers. Entire properties became islands before the sun came up. The cruelty of it wasn't subtle. These weren't communities coming off good seasons. Many of these families were hand-feeding livestock through drought days earlier. Then the sky opened and everything changed. Cattle were swept away, feed was destroyed, fences vanished. Some farmers didn't even have time to move stock before the water hit. And then came the isolation. Phone towers went down, power flickered out, rail lines disappeared under mud, supplies slowed to a trickle. People weren't just flooded in, they were cut off from the rest of the country. The mayor of Quilpie went on local radio and said something that stopped people cold. We're flying blind. That wasn't exaggeration. Between Charleville and Alice Springs, there is no weather radar coverage, an area larger than entire European countries. In 2025, Australians are still expected to read the sky with their own eyes and hope they guess right. If you're watching this from a city, pause for a second. Imagine not knowing when the next wall of water is coming and having no warning system built to protect you. Comment where you're watching from right now, city or regional. Let's see something. Because while these towns were dealing with all of this, something very different was happening hundreds of kilometres away. Inside the Senate chamber, it was business as usual. Noise, side conversations, the usual half-listening energy that creeps in during routine question time. No one expected anything memorable. Then, Senator Pauline Hanson stood up. The room shifted. Her question wasn't theatrical, it wasn't loud, it was precise, calm, almost clinical. She acknowledged the government's rapid response to earlier flooding in southeast Queensland and New South Wales. Then she pivoted. Right now, she said, central Queensland communities are cut off by floodwaters. A monsoon trough stretching more than 1,600 kilometres is dumping rain across Queensland and the Northern Territory. And then she asked a simple question. What assistance is being provided to these flood-affected communities? That's it. No accusation, no theatrics, just a question that forced comparison. And suddenly, the chamber wasn't so relaxed anymore. Penny Wong, representing the Prime Minister, rose to respond. Almost immediately, the noise started. Interjections, interruptions, calls for order. If you re-watch the footage, you'll notice something interesting. The moment the focus shifted away from cities, the room became restless. If this should have been a straightforward answer, tap like, because it didn't stay simple for long.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. I note the government's prompt attention and response to deal with the impacts of Cyclone Alfred in Queensland and New South Wales. Right now, several communities in central Queensland have been cut off by floodwaters as a 1,600-kilometre monsoon trough dumps rain across Queensland and the Northern Territory. Will the Minister please explain what assistance is being provided by the Australian Government to flood-affected communities in Queensland?
Thank you, and thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, Senator, obviously that would generally be an issue that falls within Senator McAllister's portfolio, so I'll try and provide what information I can. I understand that currently there is, as you said, severe weather and flooding.
Order.
I'm just wondering if maybe I could answer Senator Hanson's question. Thank you. Thank you.
Stop the chatting across the chamber. Please continue.
I understand there is widespread severe weather and flooding ongoing.
Order.
It's about floods in Queensland.
It's floods in Queensland, Senator McGrath. I would have thought you'd be interested in this, right? I would have thought.
Order. Order. Order.
Before we go any further, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button. Believe it or not, it really helps and support the channel. If you've already subscribed, thank you, and if not, now's the perfect time.
Order across the chamber. Senator Green. I'm sorry, Senator Hanson, you have your right to have your question answered.
And I want to hear what the Minister has to say. I've lost about 15 seconds of her response, so I'd like to hear the time I get a decent response.
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Please continue, Minister.
I understand that there is, as you said, widespread flooding across southwest Queensland. A severe thunderstorm warning is current for parts of Queensland. I won't go through all of the information about that. As you probably know, Senator, there is a distinction between national emergency events and those which are dealt with by state governments. I'm sure Senator McAllister, much more eloquently than I could explain, when one moves from a state-based event to a state response to a national response. To date, there is not a national and emergency event which has been triggered, and that response has not been triggered. But of course, the government would stand ready in circumstances where those arrangements would need to be triggered. Obviously, we know what occurred in relation to the ex-tropical cyclone in both Queensland, in southern Queensland, southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales was very difficult for the community, and you would have seen the government made it a very important priority, not only to deliver services and support, but also to ensure Senator McAllister and Senator Sheldon and the Prime Minister were available to assist the Premier, Crisafulli and others.
Thank you, Minister. Before I call Senator Hanson, I expect Senator Hanson to be asked her first and second supplementary in silence and to be given the courtesy and respect to hear the answer in silence. Senator Hanson, first supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, these floods, which came with little or no warning, have had a serious impact on livestock farmers in affected areas. These farmers were dealing with drought only a week ago. What specific assistance is the government providing to livestock farmers in these areas so that the economic impact of these floods will not linger in their communities?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Wong.
Senator Hanson, as I understand it, Queensland is leading the recovery response, and if Queensland seeks federal assistance, national assistance, then obviously they would engage with us. I'm also advised that NEMA, the National Emergency Management Agency, has been in contact with state counterparts. We obviously continue to monitor the situation. As yet, that assistance has not been sought, and were it to be sought, I'm sure you would see an appropriate response from the government.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson, second supplementary.
The Mayor of Quilpie has said there is currently no weather radar service between Alice Springs and Charleville, effectively leaving local communities blind about potentially devastating floods and hampering planning and response efforts. Will the Minister please explain why this region lacks critical weather forecasting service and when the government will address this oversight?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Hanson. I would assume that forecasting would be a matter for the Bureau of Meteorology. I'll stand corrected if that's not correct. I don't have any information on that, but I'm happy to take that on notice and provide some information.
She brought up something most Australians had never heard before. There is no weather radar service between Alice Springs and Charleville. Let that sink in.
That's not a gap, that's a void. Local leaders have been warning about it for years. Without radar, communities don't know where rain is forming, how fast systems are moving, or when rivers will surge. In plain terms, they don't know when to run. Wong paused. She said she assumed forecasting was a matter for the Bureau of Meteorology. She admitted she didn't have information on it. She said she'd take it on notice. You could feel the shift. This wasn't a policy disagreement anymore. This was exposure. Australians were hearing in real time that entire regions are expected to survive disasters without the basic tools cities take for granted. If that stunned you, don't scroll, because this is where the story stops being about Parliament. That night, social media filled the gap the cameras never reached. Videos of cattle standing chest-deep in water, homes surrounded by brown currents, makeshift boats rescuing neighbours. Meanwhile, city flooding weeks earlier was still being replayed on nightly news. Same country, same taxes, same citizenship, very different attention. People weren't angry in a chaotic way, they were focused. One post read, "No helicopters, no radar, no ministers, just bills and silence." That line spread fast. This wasn't about envy, it was about dignity. If cities get instant visibility, why does the bush need to justify its suffering? Share this with someone who thinks regional Australia always gets help, because history shows what happens when people feel invisible for too long. Australia has seen this pattern before. In past droughts, farmers abandoned long-held political loyalties after feeling ignored. Entire regions shifted because frustration hardened into resolve. Today, senators across party lines looked uncomfortable. Some nodded, others avoided eye contact. A petition demanding automatic disaster triggers for remote communities exploded overnight. Calls for a Senate inquiry into geographical inequality gained traction within hours. Even international outlets started asking questions. Why does one of the wealthiest countries still rely on manual thresholds before helping isolated citizens? Why is assistance reactive instead of automatic? And most importantly, what happens next time? If you don't want this story repeated, stay to the end, because this isn't about floods anymore. This story isn't about Penny Wong or Pauline Hanson. It's about whether geography decides dignity. It's about whether distance from Parliament House determines how fast help arrives. It's about whether Australians are equal only on paper. Out west, people aren't asking to be saved, they're asking to be seen, to be included, to matter before disaster strikes, not after headlines fade. Resilience gets praised a lot in politics, but resilience is not a substitute for support. It is not permission to delay, and it is not an excuse for silence. Storm clouds are already forming again. So ask yourself this: if your home was underwater, should paperwork come first? Should help depend on cameras? Should silence be policy? Ask your MP what happens next time rain hits the bush. And if you stayed with this video all the way through, let me know in the comments, not for the algorithm, but because it proves this story matters. Australia is watching, and the bush is still waiting.